My name is Ross Petronsky. I'm a principal planner at the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning, or CMAP. And my responsibilities include administering the Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality Improvement Program, or CMAQ. CMAQ is a federal program administered through the Federal Highway Administration that provides funds to regions to either reduce congestion or improve air quality, as you might guess from the name. The Chicago region, because it doesn't meet the national air quality standards, receives funding. Our region receives about $100 million a year to program to these kinds of projects. We administer this by having what we call a call for projects every 2 years. We accept applications, we review them, assess what we think their impact on air quality will be, and then award the funds to what we think are the best projects for that cycle. We do a whole range of projects. The classic projects are transit projects. We have, over the years, funded rehabilitation of a number of train stations, mostly in the downtown area. We do roadway projects. We are a region-wide funding source, not just Chicago, so a lot of the road projects tend to be out in places that are more highway dependent. There we can fund things like turn lanes. We can fund signal interconnects, which are timing of signals so that you keep hitting green lights as you travel down a road, you don't have to stop. So we do bicycle projects. CMAQ is a major federal fund source for bicycle pedestrian type projects. So a lot of the bike racks in the city of Chicago and many of the suburbs have been CMAQ funded. The Divvy program got its start with CMAQ funding. The Bloomingdale Trail, the 606, was a CMAQ funded project. Relatively new, although we've been doing it maybe for 8 or 9 years now, are what we call direct emission reduction projects. These are either retrofitting vehicles or replacing vehicles that have old, highly polluting engines with newer vehicles that have less polluting engines. A lot of those have been locomotives. Interestingly enough, if you think about it, Chicago area being a major freight hub, they have a number of yards where there are switch engines. And switch engines, it turns out, tend to be older engines. They retired them from over-the-road service. So we're actually replacing a number of those with newer engines, and the emissions from the newer engines are like a fraction of a percent of what the older ones are. So those actually are highly beneficial projects. They also have the advantage that a lot of the switching yards are in poorer communities, so that there's an environmental justice component to it, that we're reducing the concentration of pollution in an area that's already kind of impacted by it anyway. We also do alternate fuel projects. That is, if somebody wants to do natural gas or propane vehicles, they'll need a fueling station. We help construct those. We actually help in some cases with the vehicle acquisition itself. Actually, surprisingly, not too bad. Just as a little bit of background, in case you don't already have it, the Clean Air Act identifies 6 criteria pollutants. They're defined by law as being pollutants that are harmful to your health. The 2 that are of concern for us, at least in the transportation sector, are ozone and fine particulate matter. A large component of both of those come from vehicle emissions. Ozone, we're actually in a moderate non-attainment status at this point. There was a standard established in 2008. We were originally classified as marginal, which means you're just a little bit above the standard, and the US EPA expects you to meet the standard in a couple of years without having to do anything. Well, it turned out that we had some bad years in their weather-wise, and so we don't meet the standard. When you don't meet the standard at marginal, you get bumped up to moderate, and that means we have to actually take some actions. That's where we are right now. And the state air agency, Illinois EPA, is responsible for identifying what kinds of actions the region needs to take to meet the standard. Fine particulate matter, we have been in non-attainment for a number of years. We met the standard and then in what's called maintenance. Once you meet the standard, you then have to set out a plan, the state does, that says over the next 10 years, here's what we're going to do to make sure we stay in attainment. That's called maintenance. We were in maintenance for the fine particulate matter standard. A new standard was established. When they went to designate areas, it turned out that the data collected in Illinois was bad. They couldn't classify us. And then by a quirk of the regulations, the old standard was revoked. We're not classified under the new standard, so we're kind of in this limbo. That will continue for several more years. We here with our CMAQ funds, for example, are continuing to fund projects that reduce particulate emissions. Those tend to be diesel projects. So trucks, locomotives, off-road equipment, construction equipment, things like that that run diesel engines. That's where you get your particulates. Ozone, the precursors for that come from automobiles. So we continue to focus on both.